In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. When I was in my mid-20s, I had a mentor who posed a question to me at the time that set me on a trajectory of looking at life circumstances in a different light. And if you ask yourself this question, I believe that many times you're going to know what the right answer is. And he would ask me, after I told him some dilemma that I had run into, some problem that I was facing, he would say, do you want to do what 99% of Christians would do? Or do you want to do what 1% would do? Essentially what he was saying was, what do you think the saints would do in this situation? What goes against every inclination that you have? What grinds against your self-love and absolutely puts you to death? What decision is going to be the hardest to make? And so it was, as I went through circumstances and I would talk with him, he would repeat this question again and again. And every time I knew the answer. And not only that, but just the question itself would kind of hype me up to accept the answer, because I would immediately feel that kind of, that competitiveness, that inclination of like, I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to push myself farther. I want to brace what's more difficult. I want to feel the sting of actually having to live out my faith in a way that is not going to be comfortable. And so today's video is all about that. What does the 99% of people do just in general in our culture? These are all your pop culture icons, your movie stars, your Andrew Tates, your Manosphere, all these people who are looking for a certain set of circumstances and status and success as they present it to everyone, versus what is the 1% path, the path of the saints, those who emulate Christ. First and foremost, the 99% live for the temporal. They're all of the qualities that they're looking for, they're trying to attain in this lifetime, and they're trying to hold on to them and get them. In fact, when you look at the Manosphere, a lot of these things, the elite male is attaining to something that is so transitory and fleeting and temporal and material that there's no real substance to it. The 1% live for the eternal. Their minds and the eye of their mind is set upon not just this life, but what is going to happen, what is going to carry over, what is going to reverberate into eternity. What is my legacy for all of time? Not just the next 20, 30, 40 years, but as I transition into the phase where I face God face to face and give an account for all of my life, what are the repercussions of that life? And what does this mean for my soul? This is so much the temporary, the body, the ego, the pride, the mask, the identity. This is the life of the soul, the inner life, the essence of who I am as a person, not just what other people see. And so it is, the 99, they lead for self. This is what the 99% do. The 99% man leads for himself. That's what he does. That is his role in his company or the government, or even a lot of times I see this in Christianity where men are talking about the hierarchy in marriage and their leadership and their headship, and the way that they're describing it is so self-referential that it's not about leading to serve. This man leads to serve. This man leads and uses his leadership and the abilities that God has given him and his authority in the family, in society, in culture, in the church, to serve the people around him and to make their lives better. He uses those gifts not as a means to make his life easier. In fact, real leadership actually makes your life harder, because you have to hold yourself to a much higher standard. You have to set the pace. You have to accept the responsibility and the onus of that responsibility that you will bear on your back. And so it is, this guy, he leads for self and he goes for status. All of the fixings of status, the car, the Bugatti, the chains, whatever, the high-end watches, all of this to show him, the people around him, that he's attained to something, that he's higher than them. Now, he's a mortal man. When he dies, he goes in a pine casket just like the rest of us. None of that stuff goes in there with him. And yet in this life, he's constantly trying to separate and differentiate himself as being better and more and attaining to something. The 1%, they look to bring value to the people around them. It's not about separating themselves above people. It's about getting down in the midst of them and making their lives better and easier. So when my wife is struggling to keep the house up, I don't use my leadership position to say, hey, these are the things I expect from you. This is when they need to get done, etc., right? If the kitchen can't get cleaned, who's supposed to be up at 10 o'clock helping her clean the kitchen? Me. That's my job as the leader. I'm supposed to help her carry her burden. If I can't do it at 10 o'clock, what do? I hire somebody to come in and to help her, to ease the difficulties that she is overwhelmed by. I am looking to bring value to their lives, the people around me, the people who are underneath my care, so that they don't see me just as a separate person trying to live his life separate and differentiated from them, but a person that's in the midst of the struggle with them and making and easing the burden of their life. What about when we talk about physique? Physique, we have a whole culture of Instagram guys that are all looking to get 10% body fat, to get shredded, to build up their muscles and their pecs. I remember I saw one guy and he did. He had a phenomenal physique. And they said, oh, we're going to test the strength today. The guy couldn't bench 315 pounds. It's sub 10% body fat. And he couldn't bench 315. It's like, what's the point? You have ability as the other one. It's funny because you often go into like a powerlifting gym and you'll meet some guy. Yeah, he may be 15, he may be 20% body fat, but he just finished a 10-hour shift working construction or actually building something or doing something, working with his hands. And then he comes to the gym after working hard all day and hits it hard and is super strong. In a grid down scenario, a storm coming, ravishing your town, what's Physique Boy gonna do? 4 hours of work and he's gonna be exhausted, tuckered out, not able to do much? Ability Man is gonna be in there and he'll give you a 16-hour day. He'll move trees, he'll run the chainsaw, he'll run the jackhammer. He'll do all of that because he's physically built and strong. He's not just building puffy muscles for the sake of looking good so that he can have something on his Instagram that other dudes like. Hierarchy. People love talking about the hierarchy today. The hierarchy. What they want to do is they want to put themselves at the top. I am the top of the hierarchy. I'm the hierarchy of my family. I'm the hierarchy of the church. I'm this. Now, do we have a hierarchy in the church and in the family? Absolutely. But it's really a lowerarchy. It's where I put myself at the bottom. I take the hierarchy and I flip that pyramid on its head and I put myself at the bottom so that I am bearing the weight of the responsibility of accomplishing what needs to get done. I let everyone else put their burdens on me. I don't put my burdens on other people. In this way, I actually am showing the correct model of the hierarchy, which is I am willing to suffer more and bear more weight and more struggle and more responsibility and more discomfort than anybody else. These guys, they're predators. When they talk about women and sleeping with women and all of these different things, this is predator behavior. This is not love. This is not manliness. This is what predators do. And other men who are looking up to them as if they're successful because they've slept with a certain number of women, what did they do? All they did was undermine those women. They just took advantage of them. They learned how to manipulate them. What is exceptional about that in any way, shape, or form? This man is a protector. He picks one woman, he takes care of her, and then he protects her for the rest of her life. When you marry your wife, especially when you're blessed to marry your wife in your 20s, your wife gives you her kind of, quote unquote, the best years of her physical appearance and all these different things, and you protect her for the rest of your life. and are devoted to her through all the different stages of life. You build a family, you build having children together. And then, yes, at some point, yes, your wife's looks are going to change. That's reality. That's reality. You'll still find her beautiful, trust me. That will never go away. In fact, in a weird way, it like grows because there's so much more bound up in it. But you're there to protect her from the world, from predators, from men that would want to take advantage of her, from men that would want to use her for her looks or for whatever else. You are a real man when you're a protector. A predator is no man at all. And lastly, why does this guy live like this? Fear. He's afraid of dying. He's a coward of death. He's trying to get everything he can packed into this life because he knows that death is knocking at the door. He knows he only has a certain amount of time, and he's afraid of it. And so he's trying to prolong his life and his status and his memory and all these things. And the reality is, no one will remember this guy in 50 years. He'll run a company, he'll be a CEO, he'll be divorced 2-3 times. His kids will hate him. And in 50 years, nobody will mention his name. This man embraces death, embraces the eternal, knows that he has this amount of time to do as much good as he possibly can. This man has a bunch of kids, and he positively impacts his church, his workplace, his wife, his children. And in 50 years, people still talk about him and say what an amazing man he was and how he enriched their lives and made their lives better. I pray that you become this 1%er. I pray that people remember your name in 50 years and glorify God for all the good that you do, and that you reject this ridiculous 99% notion of masculinity and high value that is really low value garbage. God bless you.